are these people?
No more bullets. You're wondering what that might mean. We got this guy, Joe Lauria, editor of Consortium. You see him around on the streams. He's doing it up, but he writes, "Not a penny nor a bullet off the table," and he's pushing this out through SchreerPost. The U.S. Vice President, Secretary of State, and Defense Secretary are using unusually blunt language against Israel's massacre of Palestinians, but the money and weapons keep flowing, says Joe Lauria. Sound familiar, Care Bear?
Yep.
So, in the midst of an Old Testament-style genocide against the Palestinian people, there is a paraphrase line from the book of Daniel that has come into full view for the Biden administration. The writing is on the wall. Everyone in the U.S. that prominent administration officials go, they are hearing it from a public increasingly alarmed about their complicity in genocide. It is not criticism they can easily ignore. And keep that shit up, please. More pressure, the better. For one thing, if they have a shred of consciousness left, they cannot avoid seeing the Israel's military campaign deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. As the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide defines the supreme crime. But even if their hearts are stones, political warnings are scratched on the wall in a fast approaching presidential election in which increasing numbers of Democrats are affixing genocide to Biden's first name. Thus, Biden, though not Biden himself, was spurred in the past few days to dispatch his top deputies to deliver the sternest message to Israel.
I'm sure the only reason why he's doing this now, because he basically didn't pay people dust, is because of the protests.
Yes, very much so. So, at the climate summit in Dubai on Saturday, Vice President Kamala Harris told a press conference the United States is unequivocal. International humanitarian law must be respected. Too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. So this is Kamala Harris, right?
We all watched the television coverage of just yesterday. That's on top of everything else that we know and don't know yet, based on what we've just been able to see. And because we've seen it or not doesn't mean it hasn't happened. But just limited to what we have seen.
What the fuck was she saying there? Can you explain? Can you translate?
No.
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 What was that? Like,
it's always a question of her of alcohol or pills or both. Which
that was like that was fucking.
There's always the macro and then there's the micro.
That's what it sounded like fucking nothing. That's what it sounded like. Anyway, do you see this right down here? This VP Harris and Polish prez. Look at that, Poland.
Yes.
We're gonna get to that in our last story this evening. So keep that in your thoughts. And it's probably on another clip if you're watching this as a clip. Look for ViceGrad 24. We'll get to that. So on the same day, Harris spoke in what appears to have been coordinated by the White House Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. We know him, right? So we've talked about him before. In a speech at the Reagan National Defense Forum in Simi Valley, California, that I have repeatedly made clear to Israel leaders that protecting Palestinian civilians in Gaza is both a moral responsibility and a strategic imperative. That's the important bit, Collin. We're gonna come back to that. So hold on to that too.
All right.
In this kind of a fight, the center of gravity is the civilian population, Austin said. And if you drive them into the arms of the enemy, you replace a tactical victory with a strategic defeat. Okay? What does that sound like to you? Does that give you any little nostalgia bells back to a previous war in the Middle East?
Yes.
Okay, so even then, Austin couched his remarks in military and not moral terms. Joe Lauria putting it bluntly for you there. Still, the message was clear to Israel. Stop killing so many civilians. And they're going to say, no, I don't want to. That's pretty much the reply, and we know why they're doing that. We've covered that before. So Harris's and Austin remarks followed by 2-day comments by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken during his third jaunt to Jerusalem since October 7th. Collin, he's been there 3 times since the 7th.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. After meeting Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Blinken told the press, "We deserve the details of Israel's ongoing planning, and I underscored the imperative of the United States that the massive loss of civilian life and displacement of the scale we saw in northern Gaza not be repeated in the south." Why would they not want
Except
that?
It is.
Do they need that canal to go through the south of Gaza, Collin?
No.
Well, so
it doesn't matter because they're knocking off in the south anyway.
Yes, but they're saying this is us telling them, "Hey, you did it. Stop. Let's put the canal through."
But that's not what Israel government wants.
No, they want to the
they
Sinai.
Want them gone.
Right.
They want them gone. So
yes.
Completely. So screw the canal.
Right. Yes, but also we're thinking monetarily here, going like, "Hey, you did the job. We're getting a ton of pushback here. Y'all need to stop." Essentially. We got away with it if you leave it here. So, as I told the Prime Minister, intent matters, but so does the result. Blinken touts. Israel has one of the most sophisticated militaries in the world. It is capable of neutralizing the threat posed by Hamas while minimizing harm to innocent men, women, and children. This is Anthony Blinken telling you civilian deaths are not necessary here.
Right.
Because, and I want to quote again, Israel has one of the most sophisticated militaries in the world. Why would they have that, Care Bear? What country might be supporting them with that? I wonder. That means taking more effective steps to protect the lives of civilians, including by clearly and precisely designating areas and places in southern and central Gaza where they can be safe and out of the line of fire. How are they supposed to do that, Blinken? Drop more flyers with QR codes? Is that where there's no internet or power for anyone to run a cell phone and or check a QR code? I just want to make sure that we're clear there. How UNICEF is saying the safe zones are death traps. I'm just wanting to make sure we're clear on that too. So Joe Lauria continues. Israel responded with some maps supportedly outlining safe areas for civilians to go to. But the bombing in the south of Gaza, where 1.8 million Gazans are displaced from the north. That's not including the Gazans that were already there. That's 1.8 million displaced already.
Right.
Do you know how many 1.8 million? That's almost 2. How many fucking zeros is that? Count that up, peoples. That's a lot of folk. Jesus Christ. Imagine, Collin. Just let me paint you a picture of 1.8 million New Yorkers were displaced from their homes Saturday. And do you imagine the backlash something like that would receive at whatever caused that problem? At 1.8 Americans.
Right, but I think because this is somewhat far removed from us, we don't think about it in those terms.
Yeah, brown people in the middle of the desert don't matter. Except we all know they do. So, hundreds more civilians have been slaughtered since Blinken's remarks. In other words, Israel ignored him. As long as it's only talk, Israel can afford to. An unconfirmed report from Israel's Channel 12 following Blinken's meeting with Netanyahu said the Secretary of State supposedly linked American military support to certain conditions, including proof that the IDF plans to take into consideration the civilian population in Gaza, reduce civilian evacuations from their homes to a minimum, and provide more safe areas for non-combatants. So here we get to this fucking guy.
I am once again asking for your financial support.
So on Monday, and Joe Lauria is about to hit us, Senator Bernie Sanders, a Biden ally, said, according to the AP, the truth is that if asking nicely worked, we wouldn't be in the position we are today, Sanders said in a floor speech. It was time for the United States to use its substantial leverage with its ally, the Vermont senator said, and we all know what that leverage is. He said, adding, the blank check approach must end. So,
oh gee, oh
yes,
wow,
almost like voting for some Iron Domes, right? Now that you've already made all those votes, huh? Until such leverage is used, and Washington has let 2 months go by with more than 16,000 dead. Again, imagine hearing 16,000 New Yorkers dead this Saturday. Like, it would be national news for decades, right? 7,000 missing and 40,000 injured. These are mere words to them.
Yeah.
Such talk from these Biden officials and allies will not fool many people, except for fools, and will not scare Netanyahu. So far, not one bullet nor one penny has been withheld from Netanyahu's vicious regime. Collin, you remember this guy. This is Prime Minister Begin, right? At what is this? This was the Jerusalem conference. What did he say about bullets specifically?
They are enemies of democracy. And I myself, one of previous underground fighters, state here and now that wherever you can decide issues by the ballot, you must under no circumstances use the bullet.
Use the bullet.
From either direction, or left, either right or left.
Okay. So, do you think the issues in Palestine could be solved by the ballot?
No.
Or do you think more bullets from us would help more? Do you see the quandary that we're in?
Right. Well, it's the same thing here. It's like if things worked in the way that they're supposed to work, then that would be one thing. But the problem is our systems are so shit that voting doesn't work.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's true.
At
least on a federal level.
Yep.
And then people get upset when people resist in other ways that may not be a violent method.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Democracy simply doesn't work.
Yes. Well, it's not democracy.
No.
That's the thing. You argue that's not a democracy at all.
So this is the quandary we find ourselves in. Continue to support Israel's genocide and see his poll numbers continue to plummet, i.e. Biden's. The dilemma he must answer is, what would damage him more? Sticking with Israel through its murderous campaign, or risk the Israel lobby's consummate skill at destroying American politicians? On November 5th, 2024, American voters will weigh Biden in the balance, and as Daniel told King Belshazzar, he may be found wanting. Heber, thoughts?
It's funny because in my story where, I talked about my student loans, I had a few people who were like, oh, you're not going to vote for Biden now. the end. You know the answer. Like, y'all
we already know.
Y'all don't know. Like, why are you guys asking? Like,
right.
honestly,
One thing does not make a vote happen. Sorry. Even if that's, we both know that he didn't do that either. Like,
right.
If anything,
So,
Collin should be voting for George W. Bush again, if that was the case. So, you know, like, anyway.
Right. But no, but it's, so it shows two things. The protests are working, and they've had to change. Well, at least our government officials have had to change their narrative to actually pretend to care.
Yeah.
About the Palestinian communities, because they weren't saying this initially. So now they have to do a dance of, as Joe said, do we want to piss off the people or do we want to piss off the Israeli lobby?
Yes, and now you're kind of stuck in the middle.
Right. And
and
regardless for me, like, just saying personally, in light of what happened to me, I am not a one issue voter. I could be very shallow, being like, oh, Biden just gave me forgave my loan, so yeah, I'll vote for him.
Yeah.
But I think you guys know me by now that I take everything on a more macro scope. And given what we know of our history on Joe Biden, like, that hasn't given me any more reason won't vote for him.
Yeah.
Like,
there's always the macro and then there's the micro.
So yeah, so you would think though, but it's interesting now that Bernie is saying, oh, we have to divest from Israel.
Yes.
You know,
now,
like,
after like multiple times he could have already made decisions to do so.
And you know, but Biden, is Biden gonna listen to him? Fuck
no.
So, you know, so
no, this is only so he can fucking say that he said something. That's it.
Right. But what demands is he gonna be making of Biden? Like, so this is the kind of issue that,
again, talk is cheap, Bernie. You just said it.
This is 2020 all over again. If Bernie said the right thing and was morally responsible right from the jump, he could easily say, you know what? I can have people vote for you if you divest from Israel.
Yeah.
Or something to that regard.
Yeah,
but
he's never going to tell people to not vote for someone.
But instead, he kind of went along with what everyone else was saying politically, and then he got shamed to hell for it. And now he's turning back, as you said, to give him the guys that are being progressive,
lip service,
actually being in line with people, knowing that Biden isn't going to do anything.
Yeah, he's just talking. He's all talking. What he really should be doing is taking Biden's head and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's get some shit done.
Right.
Like,
but all that to say, he is correct in terms of the leverage that we have right now is our money and our weapons.
Yeah.
So this is kind of why I've said from the jump that the actual call for a ceasefire is actually bullshit. If anything, that's the compromise position. And it's shameful in a way that, you know, people are calling like a permanent ceasefire. Even that, it's like the all end all. It isn't to me.
No,
because
it gives some people some
is
freedom.
not going to stop the U.S. continuing to fund them in terms of our military and financial aid. Divest in Israel. Yeah, so essentially what I'm saying is, if they continue to do their shit, then Biden will have to say, I will divest from you.
Yeah.
But again, that's a question of the lobby. So, you know, but as I said, to me, this would be somewhat easy decision, if for me at least, but then again, I'm not president. So but if I was morally sound, and if I wanted to go with what was popular, then I would go with the people and not care what happens to me. You know, if I were at minimum to ensure that in this case, the lives of Palestinians would be saved, or at least work towards that.
Yeah.
So it's just, they're saying the right things, but they're not putting the action behind it.
Zero action. I mean, literally what they're claiming Biden is doing, they're not doing. So make sure, leave us a comment with your thoughts. Please share. We appreciate all the help we can get to fight this oppression. And don't forget to like and subscribe.